Hello and thank you for joining me today. I'm Jan Clothier from Thinking Stamping and I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator based in New Zealand. Today I'd like to share with you how I made this card using the Artistically Inked stamp set from the 2022 to 2023 annual catalogue, and it was also in the previous catalogue, but it's a favourite of mine, so I thought I'd make something with it and share it with you today. I made this card for the inspiration theme for this month at Stampin' Fancy Friday, and Stampin' Fancy Friday is a group of past and current Stampin' Up artisan team members, and each month we have a theme and bring you projects which we share on Instagram. And this is mine, and this month's theme was florals from the catalogue. So as I said, this is a favourite of mine. So we'll start off by showing you what you need to put together this card. So for my card base, I've used thick white cardstock. It's cut to a width of an A4 piece of paper, 14.8 centimetres, and scored at 10.5. Of course, if you don't use metrics, then just use whatever your normal card base is, because that is my normal card base. Then I have got two pieces of basic white ordinary, which are cut 1/2 centimetre shorter than or smaller than the card front. So 10 centimetres that way, 14.3 that way. This piece is for the inside, and so I don't need it yet. I'll pop it aside. And as you can see, with this piece, I have already embossed it using the Fern 3D embossing folder. If you don't have that one, of course you could put it on your wish list, or you could use something else botanical that you have in your stash. The next thing I've got is, or that you'll need, is another piece of basic white, and I've already trimmed that and cut it. I've used the stitched rectangle dies, and I used the third one down, so the third largest of the rectangle dies for that. And again, as you can see, I have already embossed the sentiment on. I've used the Best Wishes from the set, and I've embossed that in silver because there's some silver trim in the rest of the card. And that is eventually going to mount onto there. You need another piece of basic white, which is going to be large enough to die cut this from the coordinating artistic folder. And I've just die cut that out of plain white. And you need another sheet of basic white to do your stamping. Now I have stamped, as you can see, I've stamped 2 of the floral rose image, 2 of the smaller flower images. Those 3 are all on the same stamp, so I've done a set of those. And I've so far done 2 sets of those leaves, and for some variety, 2 of the smaller single leaf. But what I am going to share with you is how I did the leaves, because I did not stamp them just straight away. Oh, and I should have also said that the colours that I'm using today are Rich Razzleberry, which I've done the flowers in, and the 2 greens I've used for the leaves are Old Olive and Garden Green. Now that's just me, because I naturally default to the Regal colour family. You could make this pretty much in any colourway that you chose, but that's what I've done. I've gone for my favourite, which is Regal's. So we'll just pop those things off to the side until we need them. And I'll show you how I did my two coloured leaves. So I started with the lightest colour, which is Old Olive, and I just inked it up. Then I took my Garden Green, used a sponge dauber, and just daubled a little bit at the bottom. Now it doesn't really matter how much of the bottom you cover, you just want some variety. And so I'm just going to stamp that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And you get some variegation in your leaves. Now if you don't like that, of course you're welcome to just stamp it in a single colour if you want to. So just pop that off to the side in my dauber so I don't get it on anything. Now to make life easy on us, I've actually already done a set of those and cut them out, because most of what this card is about is really the putting together of it. I am going to share one other thing that I've done with some of these images after I cut them out. Now, For those of you who don't like to fussy cut, all of those stamped images, all of them have a matching outline die, and you can just die cut them out. Me, I like to fussy cut. Well, I don't so much like to fussy cut as I like the fine edge and the better control that you get with fussy cutting. So I've in fact fussy cut these out. You don't have to. There are, as I say, dies to make life easy on yourself. One thing I did do with the central flowers, it's a small detail, but I think it makes a difference. What I've done is I have taken my Stampin' Right marker in Rich Razzleberry, and I've just used it to colour the edge. Now, the reason that I do that is that I think it just gives that flower a little bit more definition. It's not as hard and full on as sponging the edge, but it does definitely give the flower more definition. So I've done that on the two big flowers, and I've done it on the two little pieces that I'm going to use as centres. Right, we've now got everything we need, so it is assembly time. Now you'll also see that in addition to the cluster of flowers, I have also got some ribbon, some crinkle seam binding, and some silver trim. So the only reason I'm pointing that out is so that you don't get all carried away and immediately attach the embossed piece to the card front, because you need to do the ribbon first. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the flowers. Now the reason I've done that die cut is simply so that I can cut it into pieces. So, and I always think, you know, sometimes we get a little bit precious about die cuts. We go, well, I've die cut it out, I've got to use it like it is. The answer to that is no, you don't. You are free to do whatever you like to the die cut once you've cut it out. So in this case, I am shamelessly chopping it into pieces because I just want to use some of those pretty, pretty little leaves. When it comes to doing your little floral cluster, you are of course completely welcome to copy whatever I've done, but you know, you shouldn't feel like you've got to copy exactly what I do, you know, because part of the fun is playing around with all your bits and going, how are they going to fit together? You know, what do I like the look of? And just, you know, have a bit of a play, experiment and try different things. And you'll be surprised at what you get. However, I'm going to start with this because, you know, the flowers are pretty central. You want to know where they're going to end up. So the leaves, and then I'm going to go for, you know, okay, well, where am I going to tuck in some of these little things? Now, opinion is divided about the die cutting, whether or not you should poke out every last little bit. Most of the time I do, but that's just because I'm just a bit, you know, fussy about that kind of thing. However, I think that it's a perfectly acceptable look to leave a few in. So sometimes I just adopt the be lucky strategy, let's see where it goes strategy, and sometimes I just leave a few in, and if they stay in, great, and if they fall out, well, I guess that wasn't meant to happen. So I guess what I'm saying there again is, you know, there's no hard and fast rules. If you like the look of a few left in, do it. If you like them all looking clean, well, take them all out. But there isn't really a right and a wrong way. So what I'm doing now is I've sort of got my eyes on where I've got things. So I'm just going to do some little pencil marks because, you know, they're going to be hidden. And I'm going to concentrate on the green leaves because the green leaves are the most visible because they're a strong colour and they're kind of the structural network of the design. So I'm going to pop them in first because I can always play around with where I pop the white things. Now, I'm deliberately not gluing them down solidly. I want them to lift a bit off the page, so I'm only gluing at the ends. I think if you glue them just, you know, if you glue the whole thing, great. That's a choice you can make. But I just kind of like the way they lift ever so subtly off the background if you only do the ends. So we'll just do that. You could, of course, choose to put a couple of these up on dimensionals if you wanted to. some of the bigger ones. I think sometimes it's a question of whether or not you know you're going to post it. I think if you know for a fact you're going to put this in an envelope and post it to somebody, you probably want to limit how much extra dimension you have. But if you're not, if you're going to give it to someone personally, then it doesn't really matter too much how high you go. Okay. Now, I just have to reach off my other table, my dimensional. Here they are. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pop in the big flowers, and then I'm going to work everything else around them. So where am I going to put them? I do want them to overlap a little bit. Yep. So, you do know me. If you've watched me before, you know I do like to use plenty of dimensionals. Don't want to get too carried away here though, because I do want to be able to tuck in the leaves. And if I've done too many, then I'm not going to have any room to put the leaves in. So I am showing perhaps a little more dimensional restraint than I do sometimes. So I'm just going to go with a couple. And now I don't really want them to be totally identical, so whoops, I'm going to move. I should have thought about that. I should have thought about where they were going to overlap. So I'm going to actually just put a little bit of glue there, because that one's going to sit there and overlap. So it can glue, those two can glue together. Okie doke. Now, let's see, where are we going to pop these? Now, because I have got dimensionals in there now, it's perfectly okay to just snip them a little bit so that they'll fit in. I think I'm probably going to have to do it there as well. In fact, I might even have to be a little more aggressive in my snipping there. Yep. And what else will we do? Yep, a little snip there just to make sure he's going to fit where I want him. Perhaps we'll have one in here. In fact, I think he needs to be even shorter. So it's just like real flower arranging in a way, isn't it? Where you snip the stems to get them the length you want them and sort of play around with your placement until you're happy. It's the same with paper flowers. Yep, I think I'm happy with that, so I will just get those ones out of my way. And same deal, I'm not going to glue the whole thing down. I'm just going to reach for my sponge, and I'm just going to dab off with that little sponge scrap so that it doesn't ooze. I'm just going to pop them in there like that. Because once again, I want them to be a little bit raised up and not completely flat. Okay, I think I might have put that one in a different place to where I had it originally, but that's fine. Can always adapt. Yep. Yeah, that's better. We'll come around here. To that one. And finally we'll do that one. It's also the kind of arrangement where, like, in a minute I'm going to have a look at what I've done and see whether maybe I need to add in some more, but I might wait until I'm a little bit further along on that. Okay, so now we're getting to the point where we might be able to start assembling some stuff shortly. So So I'm just going to leave that there. It's not finished yet, but I want to start getting it attached before it gets too high up. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start with putting a little bit of Stampin' Seal on the back of my fern embossed panel. And again, if you've watched me, you know this is how I attach my ribbons. So I've got a little bit of Stampin' Seal there just as a tack. So I've realised I'm onto a new reel of ribbon, and I just have to get that plastic wrapping off of it. Okay. So I want a piece that's going to go the whole width with a bit of overhang. So here we go. This, if you haven't seen it before, is the crinkle seam binding. It's 1/4 inch wide. It's very, very soft, very, very beautiful, and you can colour it. So if you don't want it white, you can turn it into any colour that you like. Okay, but I do want it white, so I'm not doing that. So okay, I'm going to start with just tacking, using the Stampin' Seal to tack that. Is it straight? Yep. Looks pretty straight. And I've gone for halfway up. You know, I'm doing that about halfway through. Now, because I've only tacked that ribbon on, I'm going to make sure I've got glue over the ribbon and at the ends of the ribbon, so that as it dries, that ribbon will be properly adhered. And I'm just going to actually, that was a bit dumb because I've cut that off, but okay, we'll just put a little bit of glue there. And now we will attach that to the front. Give it a nice press. And then we can put some glue on the back of this one. And attach it centrally. Now we're almost there. Give that a nice press. Okay, so we've just got a couple of things to do. To give these centre flowers a bit more oomph, I suppose you'd say, I have taken these little centre pieces, which again I have edged with the Stampin' Right marker so that it's got a little more definition. And I'm going to raise up the centres. I'm going to do the same thing again on that one. I'm going to turn it around though, just so it doesn't look identical to the way I placed that one. And now I've got these little tiny flowers which all came off of a single Stampin' die cut, and I have already dimensioned them, so I'm just going to play around with where I might put them, maybe like that, and perhaps the tiniest one will go up there. I did use half of a mini dimensional on this one, so it's very, very tiny. Okay, but we'll pop him there. And we'll whip the back off that one. There. And this one. Oops, off he goes. Oh, sticking to my tweezers. Okay. There we go there. Okay. Now, we've still got a couple of things to do. We need to do the bow. So I think 20 to 25 centimetres gives you plenty to work with when you're doing a bow. So the tricky bit, of course, is going to be feeding the ribbon underneath there. Okay. 20. You might think that 25 centimetres is a bit generous, but I'd rather have too much and get a good bow than try and save, 3 centimetres and ruin the bow and then have to start again. So I'd rather be generous and waste a little than try to be parsimonious and end up wasting the whole thing. So I do find, over the years I've worked out that 20 to 25 centimetres does it. Okay, or does it for me, because I've got fumbly fingers. If you might have a different golden number. when it comes to bows. Okay, actually I think what I want, I'm going to retie that because I want my bow to go that way. Yep, that's more how I want it. Okay, so I'm going to fiddle-faddle with that in a moment. And then to pick up the silver from the embossing, I'm going to add in some of the silver cord from the Simply Elegant trim. It comes as a combo, a gold and a silver. And as you can see, I've obviously had more than one set of it because I've got 2 silvers. Okay, whoops. And I obviously did something that I didn't use with that, so we'll get rid of it. And again, 20 to 25 centimetres should give me something to work with. And I'm just going to feed that through again and tie myself another bow. Now you can fiddle-faddle around until you're happy with the bows, and then you can just trim the ends to be what you would like them to be. Okay, and then the very last thing is a little bit of blingy embellishment. Now, because I had the silver trim and the silver embossing, I decided that I would just stick with the basic rhinestone jewels, and frankly I love them. You know, I have got a drawer full of embellishments and I use them, but I'm always coming back to these beautiful little silver blingy little rhinestones. And perhaps we'll just have one over there as well. Right, so there we have it. We have our Artistically Inked Best Wishes card in Rich Razzleberry, Old Olive and Garden Green. I'll show you what I did on the inside, because I remember I said we put aside a piece to use for the inside. I won't do it now, but I'll just show you what I did on the inside of this one. I had a few die cuts left over from when I was experimenting with making the top, so I just used them on the inside. Equally, you could just stamp, use some of those stamps and just give yourself some of that flash of colour on the inside. Anyway, I hope you found today's tutorial useful. I'm always happy to answer questions, so if you have any, I can be contacted through my blog or my Jan Clothier Independent Stampin' Up demonstrator Facebook page, the details of which are going to pop up on the end card of this video and are in the description below. And of course, if you live in New Zealand and you've seen things that you'd love to own, you're more than welcome to shop with me, and there is a link to my online store again underneath this video. So thank you very much for joining me.